Welcome, everyone. You're all very, very welcome to our next Alpha Ireland Taking the Lead call. My name is Amanda O'Shea, and I work as head of development as well as the National Alpha Youth Coordinator. So today we're going to be talking about how to create a discipling culture within your church family, and specifically talking about families today. So we're continuing to talk on that line and how to support and encourage the family. We have a wonderful panel of people to speak to today that John will be managing. We have Emily Morrissey, Maria Broderick, and Alan and Diane Morris. They're all joining us. They have a lot to say about creating this discipleship culture within our church. I wanted to start today just with a prayer and a little bit about vision casting before we jump into that. So we're just going to take a moment to pray together. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Holy Spirit. We just welcome you. We thank you for who you are and how you love us so well. We thank you for how you lead and how you guide us. And we ask, Father, for inspiration and creative and innovative ideas for our church communities, for how to love well and how to reach people with your good news of who you are, so that we all can create a discipling culture within our families and in our communities, so that people can understand and know their true, magnificent identity in you, Jesus. And we lay all these things before you in Jesus' holy name. Amen. So we're very excited about today's call. And today we're talking with you. Many of you on the call are very familiar with Alpha and the Alpha resources. Just to give a little bit of background there, that you have been traveling on a journey with us through this pandemic since April. I was looking back and I couldn't believe that this has actually been since April that we have been every week trying to talk and facilitate a conversation around just who Alpha is, where is Alpha going to go in this season and the pandemic. Is Alpha even, and it's one that we've been going on with you, is Alpha something that can be run online? Can you create community online? Can you actually connect with people online? And thankfully, the answer is yes. We're hearing stories from all over the world of different churches and church communities being able to really reach people in a way they haven't been able to in the past, which is fascinating for us. There have been that's not just any one demographic. That has been young people, that has been professionals that don't normally have time, and parents who have young children who say, I couldn't actually turn up to an Alpha, to a marriage course, to a parenting course, which we're going to talk with you about today, unless this opportunity to get online has been there. So that's been really encouraging to us in Alpha Ireland, and it's actually something that we want to maybe think about for the future. And I want to talk to you for a minute, just a few minutes, around thinking and taking all the information that we've been presenting to you and taking a breath and looking at it all and thinking about it holistically. So this is an interesting graphic that we're pulling up for you. This is literally just a first run. You're going to see this graphic develop and evolve. This is literally just a first drawing in our attempt to get the church thinking about all the resources that Alpha has to offer and how it can be incorporated into the life of the church. But why would we even do this? So here I'm actually going to pull the graphic down for just a minute, John, because I want to talk about the vision first for just a minute, and then I'm going to bring you back to that graphic. But that's just a taster. So the idea here is some of you may have read, there's a really powerful book written by the Divine Renovation folks over in Canada called Unlocking Your Parish. And some of you may have read it, and some of you might be familiar with it. I'd encourage you to get your hands on it. It talks a lot about how, and it works both in the Protestant and in the Catholic faith. It's not something that is strictly to one denomination. It can work both in the Methodist, Baptist, Pentecostal. The ideas behind what it's talking about work across the board. And the idea is to actually, as a church, take a step back, take a breath, and think about your entire year and how you might possibly think about what you're doing. Now, you have a liturgical calendar. Many of you are familiar with this. As church leaders, you follow a pattern, you follow the seasons. In your planning and in your programming, you thinking about, whether it's Advent, whether you are coming up to Easter, all the different seasons. Summer, a lot of families, typically, if they're not in a pandemic, a global pandemic, are going on holiday. So you're thinking about all of these things as church leaders, as you're forming and thinking about what is going to support our families and that are coming along to our churches, what is going to support and reach out to our communities missionally, how do we facilitate all of this? And I want us to think about how, as a church, do we think about the rhythms that we go in and how important it is to think missionally within all of those rhythms. So everything that we do, obviously, discipleship is hugely important. Christ says that for us to go and make disciples. He didn't ask us, he commanded us. He says, go and make disciples. This is an important part of church, and this is who we are. This is built in our DNA. I mean, he didn't recruit the 12, I don't know, people who are just going to set the table, but which is hugely important. He made disciples, which were equipped for all of those things, for setting the table, for reaching out to the people in the community, and they were equipped for a good work to be fishers of men, right? And so this idea of serving your church and serving your community, I would really like to challenge us to think about the entire year and think about, how do I do that and be missional all at the same time? And we at Alpha really want to help the church think about this. Really think about, how do I take a step back? How do I take a look at being missional all throughout the year? And it's actually not something that should drain us or something that makes us tired to even think about, but something that could be moving fluidly all the time and equipping different people at different times doing it. So it doesn't have to be the same people doing the same thing all the time, but it's thinking about the church holistically and getting people and delegating that to different folks who are actually on mission. And it's actually giving people permission to do it for a season and taking a breath and moving into a different season. So I think that's more of a conversation we're going to look at this autumn as we break this idea down. We're simply presenting you the idea today, and we really want you to chew on it. We want you to think about it as we think about how you use Alpha. So Alpha, if you're running it just as a program or to tick the box, then it's not going to work. I mean, that's just the reality of Alpha. Alpha is designed to help you, facilitate you to create a conversation, an ongoing conversation with your community, and help create a discipling culture within your church. So you're all the time able to use Alpha as a way to disciple young leaders or leaders in general for your church. It's literally just the starting place, the launching pad. That's why it's called Alpha, for you to begin to do that. But it's something you run, the Alpha in general, whether it's Alpha Youth or Alpha for Adults, you can continually run throughout the year. And what it should do is that after someone goes on an alpha, no matter where they are on their spiritual journey, they can then become hosts and helpers on your next alpha, because that immediately gets them plugged into the purpose of what you're doing missionally in your church. And that immediately gives them, oh, I have something to offer in God's kingdom. I actually can do, whether it's making the meal, if it's online, whether it's doing the tech, there's so many different roles that are needed in running alpha, whether online or in person. And once we start giving people that opportunity to help us do it, then that frees up the person that was running it to maybe set up the next alpha. Or now we'll pull up that graph, John, because it'll make more sense. I just wanted to give a bit of context of why I was even saying all this. You might want to run a marriage course. Now, this is just an example. And if you can imagine this as a wheel, you could take the outer ring that are all alpha resources and turn it. It doesn't have to land at these dates or times or seasons. You could literally take out sections of the pie and replace it with something else. So for instance, you have your first alpha, your second alpha, and your third alpha. You could take out one of those alphas and replace it with, we're actually going to just spend time during this time of the year being an invitational culture, working on that part of things. So where I might focus on promoting my second alpha, or promoting my parenting of children or parenting of teens course. So you might focus just the different parts of this pie. If you can imagine this wheel, you can take out the different sections and input. We've also left this inside part kind of blank for you to write into it what it is you want to accomplish in that season. Like, what is your vision for your church, for your family at this time and in this season? So as we think about alpha and all that it has to offer, you might even be aware that we have a parenting of teens and a parenting of children's course. And as we were preparing for this call today, we were just thinking, what is the context in which somebody would do this? And I'm been hugely encouraged. I've been a youth worker for over 25 years. And one of the things I have been most encouraged by facilitating parenting courses is that when the parents come to the end of it, they always say, especially on the parenting of teens course, they'll say something along the lines of, I feel like the keys to parenting are been handed back to me, have been given back to me. I feel like I let go. I parented really hard. I pushed really hard up into the age of 12, and then I kind of let go. And I feel like now I actually need to continue to parent and disciple my teenager in this instance. And that hugely encourages me. And typically when they gather, they're supporting and facilitating each other in this conversation, and that it's really facilitating them being a support to one another, which is fabulous. But in this life cycle of alpha, you can actually run any one of these things first. I've often seen churches run a marriage course first because it's something that demographically you might learn in your area or your community that really we need to be coming alongside families right now. I was just having a very relevant conversation with a pastor recently, and he and I were discussing how we're not really sure that we're all ready for the conversation around mental health that's going to need to be had when people start to gather again and when we start to come back together. And I think among families, among marriages, among children, obviously you've probably been hearing some of the statistics on the news. I am a foster carer, and so I'm linked in with TUSLA quite strongly. And the abuse, unfortunately, for children has gone up during this pandemic hugely because families were not equipped or ready to be pushed together all the time. They weren't resourced, and we're not ready for something like a pandemic. Nobody can be ready. How do you get ready for something like that? And this is a very opportune and strategic time for the church to come in alongside of families and offer things like a marriage course, a parenting course, a parenting of teens course, a parenting of children, almost before your alpha, because that's what people are needing. And that can be your launching pad before you even run your first alpha. So I would hugely recommend, because that's where people start to get connected to, when they understand, look, we're for you, regardless of whether you get involved. We just want to see you as a family succeed, whether you come along, and get involved with us or not. When families realize that, and they see begin to see the church again as a place of a haven and as a place where they can get encouraged and built up and supported, they're going to want to get involved in your alpha. They're going to want to get their teenagers involved in a youth alpha. And those things will naturally lean into the next thing. So we just wanted to help you think about the life cycle of your church and give you a bit of a roadmap. And when we're talking today about discipling parenting children and parenting teens and discipling those young people, we wanted you to think about the big picture of how would that even, like, some of you might be saying, okay, you've gotten us to run alpha and run it online, and we've dipped our toe into running the marriage course. How in the world are we supposed to start running a parenting of teens and a parenting of children's course too? So when we took a step back, we realized, actually, yeah, we need to actually think about a roadmap here and think about how would that be possible. And this is just, like I said, an example. You can move this wheel around, but it's just to help you think about how one can lead into the other and when you might incorporate it into the life cycle of your church. I'd love for John, just for a minute before we transition into the next part of our talk today, you had some interesting thoughts. I'm putting John on the spot here. Your thoughts around the putting this wheel together in this particular fashion.
Yeah, I think the idea again is not to try to overwhelm people. We just want to try and come up with the resources. I think the key point is to say that none of this isn't like different stuff that we want to try and do. It's part of the same mission. Is trying to find ways of reaching out and discipling people. And so we were trying to kind of put this together to showcase, that it's possible, if you're just looking for a way to kind of revamp your church and really try to go on mission. We want to try and show a way that's possible, that really linked into the realities of where churches are at and where you find yourselves in the liturgical calendar, also taking into consideration the realities of, like, the school year and that kind of thing. So when I looked at this, when Edward done it initially, we'd kind of done out the different dates, and some stuff kind of overlapped on others. But what I realized is I just kind of took it off this and did the dates. And I said, so if you started, let's say, the marriage course the first Wednesday of 2021, if you started on the 6th of January and you were to just run the different things that are in there for the weeks that they were due to run, you would finish on the 15th of December. So it's literally, a platform for your entire year that's there. And this isn't to just try and say you do this, alongside the other things that you're doing, or you only do these things exclusively. The idea is to try and help you to come to see that there is a huge possibility of things that are there, so that people can kind of integrate back into the life of the church and to reach out and to really try and be discipled for moving forward.
Thank you, John. Could you bring up that other slide? Is that there for you? So we're going to transition now into the second part of our call. And I just wanted us to think about this. I do lots of, in the years past, conferences, youth conferences. This is someone that speaks into youth and children's ministry in America. But he was talking about students, and this is primarily teenagers, need more than just information. They need opportunities to experience what God wants to do through them. And this was true for me as a teenager. And I really believe that the first place of discipleship is the family. I believe that the church's job is to come alongside the family and support the discipling that's taking place with mom and dad. Now, oftentimes that isn't always in place. Not often, sometimes that's not in place. And the church has a very pivotal role when the parenting isn't happening. And that's where the other supports can come into play, of running a parenting or a marriage course, but or providing other supports. But in general, for our families, the church's job isn't to take over the discipleship of that teenager or that child. It's to come alongside and complement and support and lean into the parents' role. But the primary role. So how would you even begin to do that? Well, it really is, isn't it? Giving the keys back to parents and saying, this is something you can do. And we want to cheer you on, and we want to support you, and we want to help you in your discipling journey. So it is providing that conversation for parents to actually succeed and win at this. So I'm going to hand this over to John.
Okay, thank you.
Obviously something I'm quite passionate about, and I'm going to be quiet now.
It's about time you're passionate about something, Amanda. We're sick and tired of you just being dispassionate about things. That's brilliant. Listen, thank you all so much for kind of coming along, and I appreciate Amanda doing that. The reason that we wanted to spend the time on that was so that you didn't think that we're just going off piste and going into a completely different area. We've been working, the people who are going to be hearing from now are people who have been engaging with this over the last number of years, people who have experience of what this looks like. And the more that we see churches running these kind of things, the better chance we get to understand how it can be put into place, how it might look in the life of the church as we move forward. So there's a few people who I'd like to introduce now. As we go up, I'm going to kind of introduce them maybe one by one. The first is Emily Morrissey. Emily, I'm going to unmute you now. And if you might just quickly, hopefully that has worked, if you might just tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you based, and how many children do you have?
Hi everybody, my name's Emily and I'm based in Wicklow near British Bay, and I'm part of Red Cross Church. I'm a mum of 4 children, all primary school age children, so from 5 to 12. And so that's my stage of life. I'm very much in the parenting young children stage of life.
Excellent. So it's been a really interesting time for you over the past few weeks and few months with everything that's going on. And you're here to tell the tale at the end, which I think is quite impressive. So well done. Emily, we'll come back to you in a couple of moments, if that's all right. I'd like to introduce now Maria. Maria, if you could do the same, tell us a little bit about where you are based and your background, please.
Yeah. Hi, guys. I'm living in Ballantyre, and I'm a mum of 5 boys, aged from 30 to down to 15. One is married, one is about to get married next week, and we're about to become a grandparent. So all very exciting times for us, yeah. So Steph and John live in Ballantyre, and we're involved in kind of a cluster of parishes, Dundrum, Meadowbrook and Ballantyre.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. It's extremely busy around your way at the moment. So congratulations on that. That's brilliant. Next, I'll invite Alan and Diane as well. I will just try and find Diane, who's there. And if you guys, you have been doing things for quite a while together. So if you wouldn't mind kind of giving us a little bit of a background as to where you guys are based and where you come from.
Hi, my name is Alan Morris. I live in Dundrum, or I go to church in Dundrum. I live in Dean's Grange. I have, what was this? I think someone said they had 3 theories and then no children, and then they had 3 children and no theories. I have 3 children, or I should say 3. One's 22, 19, and 14, and they're all boys. And, yep.
Excellent, brilliant. And Diane, are you there with us?
Yeah, I have the same. I concur with Alan.
That's good. I'm glad that you both have the same. That helps. Makes it
and we've been involved in Alpha. We've been involved, really enjoyed the Alpha marriage and pre-marriage for 15, 16 years, and just love the Alpha material. Yeah. And the practicalities of how it's used and how user-friendly it is and the impact. Yeah.
That's super, Diane. Thank you very much. And we're looking forward to kind of chatting about that in a few minutes. Emily, I'll come back to you now, if that's all right. You recently ran the Parenting Children's course in your church. Could you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, well, I am, as I said, a parent of primary school children, and the discussion all the time at the school gate and with friends from school is, how managing my children, all these questions about that we all go through. And I'm talking to them, and I want to bring God into it and faith, and how, praying for your children is the most powerful and effective way. But sometimes that conversation doesn't happen. And through church, I felt that the best thing to do is to do a parenting course. I'd done one through Alpha when my children were babies and found it really useful. So as Alpha Ireland are saying, I'm trying to invite a cultural invitation where you invite people into your home, and you have really good coffee and cake, and you discuss something that's relevant to all of us, which was our kids, which we all love to talk about, and comparing notes, and then bringing Alpha material in with Nikki and Silla Lee, bring God and bring the Bible into it, so it opens up conversation. So from people that were very far from faith to those, there was a few Christians on it, it was a very relaxed environment to discuss God, discuss our children, make friendships, and a stepping stone towards asking those people, would they like to do Alpha afterwards? So that was my thoughts on why I did it.
Super. And you've kind of, what I kind of like about that, and I think we'll come back to in a way, is this idea of kind of fitting that in together then with Alpha Online, because you have followed up the parenting course. So just to clarify that you did the parenting course when life was normal, quote unquote, that way. But you kind of jumped on the idea then of doing Alpha Online, and that process. Did you find that there was a good way of moving from the parenting course then into the Alpha Online? Was there a smooth enough kind of transition to that, or?
Well, I suppose, as you said, my parenting course was cut short. Well, we did 6 weeks. So we did 5-week parenting course, and I added an extra session, which was all about online and how to manage your children when they start to go online. So that was week 6, but it just finished. We had to lock down just before that happened. So, and then Alpha Online happened. Actually, I didn't know Alpha Ireland were promoting it. I just had felt God was saying I should do an Alpha Online course for the community, and contacted you. And the fact that I actually done the parenting course, it was an opportunity to ask those on the parenting course, would they like to do it? So 2 people on the parenting course went on and did Alpha, and I just found the transition was really good for them. So they'd been introduced to Alpha already. They knew, Nikki Gumbel was referred to in the parenting course a little bit. So there was it was an easy flow from one to the other. And I think going forward, as you showed in your diagram, that the flow from parenting courses to Alpha, it works very well together as a package as such. So now, yeah, we're running Alpha Online. We're into week 6 tonight. It's going really well, surprisingly well online. There's a real sense of community, and after, I think it was last week, we really felt connections and relationships being formed, and people really relaxing. And as Nikki Gumbel said last week, there's the Holy Spirit's not confused by Zoom, and I think that really struck all of us, that it's just phenomenal that we can pray for people across a computer and they can sense the power of God. So very encouraged by that.
Brilliant. Thank you, Emily. One of the things that I think you're kind of talking about, the idea of community there and building it up. How did you find that sense? What I really loved when you were talking about like the parenting course, that people are generally speaking about something that they're very passionate about, which is their own children. So that sense of community coming up, was it something that kind of flourished quickly or difficult? Was it a difficult process in the parenting children course?
Well, the parenting course was pretty much everybody knew each other or were connected in some way. So it was very local. And so I think there was 11 of us that did it, and a couple of leaders, most from the national school down the road, and then other people through friendships. And so we all kind of had a connection. And so it was very local, very community based. And I know some of the girls are in touch with each other who wouldn't have had friendships before. And so, yeah, it's very much community based, which is what if you're in a church in a community, it's great to reach out into the direct area,
Yeah, absolutely. And so was it kind of through the school gates? You were kind of talking about that sense of kind of through the school. I think that almost seems like there's an interesting opportunity there to be able to kind of work in tandem if the church is kind of even close to a school or around a school, that there's a kind of a very easy way of kind of linking the two. And in some ways the school and the church can sometimes feel a little bit separate, but there's an opportunity where they can kind of work together.
I found with the parenting course, it was very much an invitation, a verbal invitation, a relationship invitation. So that I didn't advertise. Well, I did put it on Facebook, but I didn't get much feedback from Facebook. For the parenting course, it was more relational. Whereas with Alpha Online, we put it out there and we got responses from, actually, then again, the majority of people come to Alpha through invitation, actually, more than on social media. That's what I experienced. So to go back to the parenting course, yes, it was very much relationships that were formed. And parenting, as you say, we're all parenting, and we all have the same struggles, and we all want to talk about it. And we all want to eat cake and coffee in the morning. So it's
perfect. It's like an absolutely ideal moment that's in there. I don't know what I kind of loved. You're kind of talking about this idea, and we're trying to talk about this culture of discipleship and trying to help people to kind of move along in their faith journey. Do you think that a resource like the Parenting Children's course can help to build a culture of discipleship in a church context?
Definitely. Well, I suppose parenting course or Alpha, whatever, you have a group of people that get to know each other, they develop a relationship. Then you bring God into the mix, and you begin slowly on these courses to disciple people through talking about how you parent your kids. And then on Alpha, you are obviously bringing a group of people together that will come to know God, and the Holy Spirit will convict them. But the key, isn't it, is discipleship afterwards, that they've obviously got friendship, it's relational, they want to progress their relationship with God, but it's all about the people they've got to know. And then as a leader, it's how you best disciple them to walk into their calling and to reproduce Alpha in their own home. So it's definitely a flow from the parenting course into Alpha, into discipleship, as you've been sharing today. So yeah, I don't know if that's clear. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, no, you did. That's brilliant. That's really amazing. Thank you so much. We'll come back to you, Emily, in a little bit, if that's all right. And we'll kind of chat about a few more things. I just want to chat to and bring in Maria and Diane there, because just from you guys have recently been working together with just before the lockdown as well. You were working with the Parenting Teens course. So just for those who might know the difference between the Parenting Children's course and the Parenting Teens course, apart from obviously the title and that kind of thing, is that from the children's course is generally from 0 to kind of 10 years of age, and it's kind of done in the UK kind of school system. And the Parenting Teens course is for those who are parents or guardians of those who are maybe from 11 to 18 years of age. So Maria and Alan and Diane, you guys were involved in running one in Dundrum. Am I correct in saying, Maria, that there was a few different churches who were working together there on that?
Yes, so it was a Churches Together initiative. So it was across the Methodist Church of Ireland and the Catholic Church. We ran the first one in the Dundrum Parish Church, the great centre there. And I suppose I ran one a few years ago, and it was through the primary school my kids were in, and it was a parish initiative. The principal said, why don't we run a parenting course in conjunction with the confirmation year, which, sort of let's try and provide some things as well as the basic confirmation program for parents. So that I had the experience of running one in the school, and then this one was in directly through the parish. And I suppose I love the whole parenting course. I agree everything that Emily has said. With the whole thing of that I find is how to connect with people around your faith, and it's quite a hard thing because people aren't coming to church. So how do we connect with God, with people? How do we connect with people at all? And so I think the Alpha Parenting, this is common ground. It's a common place of interest that we all share and are passionate about our children. And parents are really struggling. This is a real place of need, parenting teens. A lot of mixed messages out there. There's a lot of relativism, subjective, you make it up as you go along, but a lot of parents aren't getting what they really need to help them face the challenges of this generation, and I think Alpha Parenting really does that. The Alpha Teens parenting, it's got a really good balance of the unconditional love with accountability, and in a setting that's non-judgmental. It's accepting. It takes people where they're at. It's a level playing field. So and I just found with a lot of parents come in there, you mightn't get them to come to a prayer meeting or church, but they come in here and we're already on we all have the same need, we're all struggling, and we all have something to offer. So a lot of parents who maybe don't have much of a faith background there, they have just as much to offer, and so they feel they're making a contribution as well as, the big learning that through the information that's on the course.
That's really interesting. Maria, no, absolutely, it does. You're coming from a specific Catholic point of view, from your own background as well, and the church there is stating the parents are supposed to be the first formators of the faith, that it's down on them. But I think realistically in recent times that perhaps there's been a culture, I think, in Ireland that we've kind of outsourced this expectation to the church or the school. So how, from your perspective, kind of resource like the Parenting Teens course help to change that kind of culture?
Sorry, I've drawn a blank.
No, sorry. Yeah. So it's just, with parents being, the first formers of the faith, how can something like this help, in trying to help them feel like that?
Well, I think Alpha in general is a great resource to equip parents. And so the parenting and the marriage in particular, they're practical tools to connect people with God, with their greatest need, but with God in the early stages, that then very often, once you break the ice, you can then move on to, the Alpha course itself, faith-based. Once you make a connection with people and build the relationships, I think so much it starts with relationships. And just like, Jesus, just reading this morning about, how Jesus connected at the point where people had the need. So with Zacchaeus, he was lonely. He was friends. Jesus says, I want to be your friend. I want to come to dinner. And asked, so the woman at the well, he said, give me a drink. I need a drink of water. So, so in the same way, I feel very passionate that we need to be connecting with people where they're at to start off with, and then gently lead them on the road to a relationship with God.
Brilliant. Thank you, Maria. Yeah. Diane.
And can I add to that? It's like Alpha, the parenting offers the parents a place to step back and have a look at the bigger picture and maybe see that they're doing a good enough job, because parenting is very lonely and very stressful. And sometimes coming together with the, certainly on the last course, parents can feel not alone, but also I think the discipleship or the introduction to God part can sometimes be seeing how the team works. It can be seeing the warm invitational, the cup of tea, and the friendship evangelism that builds that continues that relationship, and then continuing on the discipleship part as it's run again, other people can come on and help. And that, but even running the parenting course is the discipleship, because it's a little stretch for people in trusting God and taking that step of taking a risk and asking someone and trusting God for bringing in people, but just seeing then how parents can be encouraged to take the bigger picture and see how they can, by staying steady, meet their teens' needs, but also just helping them to remember. That's to add to that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, that's brilliant. Diane, could you tell us a little bit then, because you were obviously involved with Maria as well and Alan in the Parenting Teens course in Dundrum with the churches together. Can you speak a little bit about that? Because it seems like this is a wonderful opportunity for churches. If most of the time, hopefully as Christians, we can agree on the things that we agree on, and Alpha kind of tries to focus on that. But with the parenting course, it seems like there's an opportunity there for churches really to work together and to serve the community together. Could you speak a little bit about the experience that you've had?
That was great. It's really great to work with other churches, because it's something we share. I mean, Jesus is the main thing, and that's the main thing. And parents, we all have in common the love of our kids and wanting the best for our kids, and somehow to connect them into God, whatever way that be, through youth clubs or camps, but for the parenting, it's just coming together with other parents. And a lot of our children are in schools together. So they're all in school with the different churches are involved in school. So you're already connected that way. And I think even the opportunity to witness to unity, working together on something that's important for the faith of our children, God being the main thing, Jesus, despite the differences in styles, there's just such a need, and it's great fun working with a team, and there's so much learning from one another that we can do in supporting one another. Does that?
Yeah, absolutely. Alan, for you, is there anything from like that process that you found that has worked? Do you find that the doors are open as well?
Look, sometimes we think of discipleship or disciple things as like a kind of like a course, kind of like nearly a removed course that we do in the back of the church or something like that. But like what is church? More and more I've come to understand that we have to do life together. We have to live it. And with me, like, I look at what is the felt need in the community, and like parenting, marriage, and, you know, even the seeking out of faith. You know, people are seeking, looking for things in all sorts of places. And like, we have good news in the Christian faith, and we have so much to offer. But we have to be relevant, and we have to, I like the word, we have to look at what's the felt need. What is the felt need in the community? And when I've worked at different churches around the place, sometimes it's been simply a feedback. You know, people are not being things. But one of the underlying things that I see all the time is parents struggling with, particularly I would say with teenagers. And there's the physical issue of younger children, and, you know, just the energy level and things like that. And you are a controller. But then as you become like over 12, then you become kind of maybe more of a consultant. And that shift in your mindset can be hugely a change in your mindset. And on the parenting course, it actually looks at the difference between the way parents think and the way children think. And when you go on a parenting course, it's not about the children. It's about us. It's about me and what I have to learn. And I go on the courses, when I take them, I go on them as well, because I need to learn. I have 3 boys, and they stretch it for me. And that's good in some ways, but it's still a challenge. And the marriage course, when we go on the marriage course, it's lovely seeing couples come to a course, and they might have an okay marriage, but they've got stronger and they feel more connected. And the whole thing, connection and community. And remember that community and discipleship are very interwoven. And how do we do community? And I love the idea of we're doing life together as a church, living life. It's not something that's compartmentalized into a church building. We're out of the building now. Good in many ways.
Yeah, and that's a lovely idea. Really, and that really echoes then when you're saying that felt need. It's, you can only kind of feel that need if you spend time with people and you are doing life together with them. And the church then isn't just kind of what happens on a Sunday. It's the whole week kind of together and working together.
I remember I read a book. It was called Holy Discontent. It was a lot about Moses and his holy discontent for his people. You know, the people of Israel. And like I at one stage, I felt a holy discontent for people who are kind of struggling with their marriages, and that's really why it started me on the road to doing marriage courses over the last 15 years, is to help support marriages throughout Ireland, and also then in the parenting as well. And I know lots of people out there have some sort of, there's a You're It ministry for everyone. And I'm it for doing the marriage and parenting, and I hope there's many people listening to this program now that it's a You're It for them, and they want to get involved in it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, and I really appreciate everyone and your time. So we're going to open up to questions in a few minutes, but I do think that's a key issue, is that you know, just even from how I worked for Emily, there was a sense of, this is a felt need in my life, and there's a lot of people who I know, and it's, you know, incumbent on me to be able to kind of go out and invite those people in. And sometimes it's noticing that need and encouraging people to maybe step forward with that too. So I do want to leave a little bit of time for some questions at the end. So we've got about 10 minutes or so hopefully we'll be able to do that. Just before we do that, I just wanted to let you know about our Explore series, which is happening next week. As you know, that we have 2 different things that are happening at a time. Every 2 weeks we have our Taking the Lead call, and in the week in between we have our Explore series, and we're really excited to have what's going to promise to be a really good conversation with Bishop Pat Story about the Irish Church on Mission. I was speaking with Bishop Pat yesterday, and we're just kind of going through some of the things we're going to speak about on this, and I really do think this is something not to be missed. I think the level of practicality and the level of reality as to where we all are and the need that's there, please do feel free to come along. And if you think that there's someone who could really do with hearing a positive message about being on mission, and being alive and active in the church in this day and age, then please do feel free to invite them along. You can sign up via our website or email info@. So I just do want to kind of open it out there. I know I can't necessarily see any questions that are in there, but is there anybody who has a particular question around, whether it's the practicalities of the parenting courses at all that's in there, or just a kind of question in general about what we've been speaking about, this culture of discipleship?
And just to mention that the Reverend William Olhausen is on the call, and as a church leader has offered as well. So we have both lay and people, the laity, as well as a reverend who's open to helping us with this questions time. So if you want to pose your question to himself using these resources in his own church, or to our panel, we're all here to assist in any way if anybody has any questions.
So Grace, sorry, apologies. I see that Grace has that question down there. So do you want to take that, Amanda?
No, I was literally, I think it's a question to Emily. So it says, does Emily mention that it is a Christian program? So Emily, do you want to speak to the faith element of the parenting course?
So the parenting course, they've done it extremely well, because obviously Nick and Silly Lee are Christians, and they're involved on staff in HTB in London. So they're coming from a Christian background, and they talk about the Bible and how we can pray for our children. After, not after the first session, but after the second session, they pray at the end. They do it really well. It's not any way cringy or inappropriate for non-Christians. It's just positive reinforcement from what we've just discussed. And then during their talk, they refer to different Christian leaders, or they bring in references to the Christian faith, but it's not overtly Christian. So it is good for people that haven't experienced church, or it's not overly evangelistic.
Can I just say as well there, the last time we ran it in our parish church, our parish priest was concerned, that we were completely transparent about this, and was wondering, should we put something on the advertising that this is a faith-based program? And a big part of me thought, well, I don't want to put people off, that we really are trying to bring people in, and that actually could be off-putting, because it's a parenting course. And the content is relative to everyone, faith or not, and that could be just as misleading as not putting anything. So in the end, we concluded, look, it's been advertised from the parish church, and that nearly was enough to say, look, this is a Christian-based, Christian values thing. And at the end, there's no bones about, there's a prayer at the end of each video. At the end of the night, short prayer, very well done. They also say, I think it's on the first night, this is based on Christian values, but you don't have to be a Christian to be part of this. All faiths and none are more than welcome. So all are embraced and welcomed in, but they make that one point. And they're the main things. And I think that was enough for us. And so we didn't broadcast this as a faith-based, because it's not. It's a parenting course for everyone, So that's how we did it. We managed it. And people were quite happy that they weren't being duped or pulled into something that they didn't sign up for.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Maria. Someone sent me a question privately. They're hoping that Alan, just very briefly, because there is a slew of questions after this, Alan, that I want to get to. So if you could very briefly just expand on the fact that we are the church, and that is important. This idea that the church exists, yes, we have buildings, but that the important bit is that we are the church. Could you expand on that thought and that idea?
Yeah, we have to do life together. It's sometimes we segment things into boxes, if you like, containers, but that's not what the faith is about. A church is more than just a building. It's the people and how we live that out as disciples. We are called, like Amanda, you said, we are called to be disciples at the start, and we are all called to be disciples and live that like living water. It has to flow into us and has to flow out of us like living water. And so Am I the church? Yes, I'm part of the body of the church, and we all are. So we have to live it out in whatever way that God calls us to.
Thank you,
quick
Alan.
enough?
That was great. Thank you so much. What time of day do people run the parenting courses? Is it after the school run or in the evenings or both? I think Emily spoke to it there. Does Diane, do you want to speak to when you felt it was good to run?
I one time I did it after the school run. Some of the school mums came home. We did it in the evening when we ran it with the churches together. I also had a diagram. I don't know if people can see it. This is the HTB diagram of the church and running the courses outside the church.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is sometimes the people go out of the church and run the courses outside, and then people go back into the church. Can you see?
Yeah. Yep.
Just putting that by way of discipleship, by the fluidity in and out of the
In and out of it. And it's
church.
so good. It is so important to think of it that way. So it can be run outside of the church as well as inside of the church. And I think, yes, I think that people will start to navigate and understand how important the life of the church becomes as part of their family life and what they're doing and connecting in with church and how it can be a support that way. How important is hospitality to running the parenting course? Who would like to speak to that? I'm going to pick some.
Well, I think the cup of tea is very important, and the biscuit or the tray bake or something. It's very nice coffee. It's the alpha hospitality that welcomes people. That's my personal.
And also the thing I found is that you've got to get the parenting course started. So the negative was that they arrived for tea and coffee, and and no one wanted to actually get going. We were chatting so much, and they had to be done by 12 because they were all going to pick up their children. So that was a hard bit of trying to stop them eating and drinking and go and sit down and
go ahead.
On a practical, we didn't serve the coffee till the discussion. So we started first. Okay. And then brought out the tea and coffee when the discussion time was. So that was how we worked at one time.
Excellent. I'm trying to unmute Reverend Olhouse in there. I don't know if he can. There you go. Just want to ask you, do you recommend this parenting course for confirmation parents or out of messy church families? Or could you speak into that a little bit?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am happy to speak into it, although I'm probably not the best qualified to. I think it's appropriate for all those contexts, Amanda. And I think every situation will have its own dynamic, and one will have to be sensitive to the needs, perceived needs around the community. But yes, absolutely, no question.
And is it something that you yourself have started to do, or something you're planning to do in your own context?
Yes, so in our current parish, we haven't done parenting course, but we are definitely planning to do a parenting course. Yes, and in fact, what's made that possible for us is the online resources now and the ability to do this online. I think that's changed everything. So even smaller parishes like ours can suddenly look to be quite ambitious in how we serve the community.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I think someone asked, was the course advertised outside the church? We literally just have 1 minute. Can anyone give a 20-second answer to that? 10-second.
Yeah. Well, we advertised it in the local schools, and again, I would agree with Emily. Word of mouth, personal invitation is the best way to pull people in.
Excellent. We've covered a lot of ground today. Today is really about a taster for what's to come. Alpha Ireland really want to facilitate this conversation further of thinking about the life cycle and the roadmap of how Alpha can be used, because Alpha isn't just a course, it's not a program. It is creating a culture for you to lay a foundation of facilitating and loving families and supporting people within your communities. We've discovered by running Alpha online that we're reaching the lonely, the people who don't have a family or someone to connect in with and can't get to our churches. We're discovering that young adults who are spread out because of university in loads of different places are connecting online in ways that people haven't connected before. So it's fascinating. And if I could leave you with a final charge. You're never too young or too old to run Alpha or run the parenting course. You're never disqualified. I was running parenting courses throughout my 20s and my 30s before I ever became a parent. It's really facilitating and becoming humble, a conversation. The resources do a lot of the heavy lifting for you, whether theologically or asking the right questions. And you're really just providing that place, that hospitable place of setting the table for conversation to take place where people feel supported. So if you could think of your role in that way, it really opens up the door. We heard a story recently on an Alpha Global call from, I forget which country it was in, but there was a lady who was in her 60s, and she decided to run an Alpha online, and she ended up having a whole group of 20-somethings, young men who joined this call. And she ended up finding she didn't think she had any ability to resource or disciple this age group. She would have never considered herself to be the person. And it ended up being just life-giving for both of them. And she rediscovered a whole calling for herself and understanding how she could love people well in her community. So my challenge to you is don't disqualify yourself. Don't disqualify the people in your community. Let's see what God and the Holy Spirit will do and get up to in this time and in this season. And what a great opportunity we have. I think we are strategically poised, as I said earlier on the call, to really love our communities well. Alpha want to help you do that with all that we're offering. I do want to mention coaching calls as well. If that's something that you desire, on Thursday mornings, we have slots open for you to book those. You can book them on our website. Please take avail of those if you are running Alpha or thinking of running Alpha and just need that one-on-one conversation with one of our staff. We're happy to do that. It can be yourself or your team, whomever you like. Please do look us up. Our time is up. John, do you have any final thoughts before we close out the call?
I want to say thank you very much to everyone for coming on the sunny day. Well, it's sunny where I am, so it's nice to see it back. So thank you all for joining us this afternoon. And thanks so much to Maria and Diane and Alan and Emily. It really makes a massive difference when you guys were able to get kind of the perspective from everybody who's done it at the call face. So thank you so much for all that you shared today. We really appreciate it.
Excellent. Thank you.